What up? We are live on Concrete Reality TV, where we strive to know more and do more with what we know. Man, we back in here. I got the author Danelle Wright back in the mix. What's happening?
What's up? What's up?
Got that boy Cool Cutter.
What it is amongst those who know better, so we do better.
Okay, Fred, what's happening with you?
Hey, good evening to all.
He come in with the professor.
So yeah, before we get it cracking, you know I got to play the intro so y'all know what it is.
Concrete Reality.
Hey, what's happening? So we're gonna jump right into it. Cutter, you found the video?
Yeah, I got it. Let me pull it back and pull it on up. Hold on 1 second.
All right, while you're doing that, any guest that's on here, what we're about to talk about is, should paternity testing be mandatory at birth? Ooh, the good shit. I know that one's been hot all week. They've been talking about it for a while, but I think it kind of made a reappearance on social media because somebody brought it up and then it went viral. So now everybody's discussing that topic. Should you have paternity tests at birth? You know, are we going to, start causing some unhappy homes to take place before the child or right at the time the child is born, before you even sign that damn birth certificate? That's going to be crazy if that, comes into effect. But I guess it'll protect a lot of dudes from being caught up in the system early on. And they can at least know, hey, I'm not the pappy. I ain't the pappy. So, Cutter, you found it yet?
Yeah, you just got to approve the share, I think.
Oh, okay. You're a moderator on there, host, so you should be able to just click on present and then go in there and do it.
I did. It says I'm sharing, but it's not coming up. Hold on, let me see something here. Yep, it's
Oh, that must be it.
You see it?
I just brought it up.
Oh, okay. All right, let me go ahead and play it then.
At birth, I am absolutely on record as saying that if we want to prevent the problem of having men challenge paternity later down the road, then let's apply a proactive solution. Automatic DNA testing at birth would work to help two things. One, we would assure that the right parents were named on the birth certificate. Two, it would stop paternity fraud and take the profit out of paternity fraud.
But so many women's groups say this wouldn't be fair. You're acting like you don't trust the mother. Why do you think they say that?
It's a red herring. It takes away from the focus of, well, who's the one person who has all of the information about potential fathers or the paternity candidates? It is the child's mother. And currently, in most cases, she has no duty to disclose that, well, wait a minute. Well, my husband's not really my child's father. My boyfriend is. Like, well, wait, lady. But you're married. You forgot that you were married? No. Anywhere from 5 to 30% of the general population, men are raising and paying for children that are not theirs and don't know. According to the American Association of Blood Banks, between 25 and 30% of the males who are accused of being the father, they take a paternity test and find out they did not do it.
Are you for mandatory DNA testing at birth?
I am absolutely on record as saying that if we want to
So, man, Yeah, that's the one I watched.
Yep. Wake it up, wake it up.
So, I mean, so wait, let's put this into play. So, you with your girl, you done been through the 3 trimesters, the 9 months. Y'all coming pre-registered with me at the hospital. You go to the hospital, you deliver the child, and then they give this opportunity to you to say, hey, nurse comes in, would you like to do a mandatory would you like to perform a paternity test that's available to you? You do this. Do you do it? Don't you do it? Are you embarrassed to do it because you don't want to cause any friction with your girl because you don't trust her? Or what are your what are y'all thoughts on this? What do you do in this case?
I'm gonna go that way.
Listen, let me go on record first, because
Okay.
I know my position is probably gonna shock a few. But I don't know if your question is, should it be voluntary or should it be mandatory? Let me clarify that first.
So what they're talking about is it being mandatory.
Mhm.
So let's say, you have the option before this becomes mandatory. Do you think that women would be okay with it voluntarily without it being legislation?
I don't think that women would be okay with it. I don't think the majority would vote for that to be something that would be a mandatory thing. But in my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with it. Actually, I think that it would eliminate a lot of I'm not the baby daddy, I'm not responsible, or I didn't take responsibility because I didn't know for sure if the baby was mine, all that kind of stuff. And if you don't have anything to hide, why not? Like, I know somebody personally that went 6 years raising a child that he thought was his. And the woman that he had the baby by was an older woman. He was in high school. He was 16 years old when this lady got pregnant. She had already had a child that was older than this one. And she was, apparently the guy that she was sleeping with was married. So instead of her putting the baby on the guy she was sleeping with, she put the baby on the 16-year-old. And unfortunately, his mother didn't press charges or anything like that because he wanted to take responsibility. He was so in love, etc. 6 years later, he finds out the baby isn't his by DNA test. But guess what? When he went to the courts to say this baby isn't biologically mine, the court says, and there's a statute of limitations. If this was in California, there's a statute of limitations of 2 years to contest whether or not a child is biologically yours. Even if the child is not biologically yours, you are the legal father, therefore you are financially responsible. So that baby has the right to go and build a emotional bond with the biological father, but still hold you as responsible for that financial obligation. I don't think that's fair. I think a lot of people have gotten off without being responsible for what they've created because they just told the woman to put it in somebody else's name. And of course, she's going to be stupid enough to listen to the person that she's in love with. And we need to kill all that. If you don't have nothing to hide, make it mandatory. Go ahead. Test them right here at birth. I don't think it should be optional because back in the days when you wanted to get a marriage certificate, you used to have to get a blood test to make sure that you weren't related as well. So I feel like there's nothing wrong with that as long as you ain't got nothing to hide. And if you do, then the baby needs to know who their biological father is anyway. So I think it'll kill a lot of the mama's baby daddy maybes.
Dang, I didn't expect that. I did not expect that. So, man, what you got? I know, Cutter. I see it in your face. You like, I got something to say.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna
He
let
say,
K-Fred.
K. Fred, go ahead, take the stage. What you got on this? Oh yeah, Dr. Jones, man, appreciate you joining in. You see, he already gave his shout out. It should be mandatory.
Thank you, Dr. Jones, and I agree with you. It should be mandatory.
Oh, by the way, if you want to come up and join us this evening, let us know. We'll send you the link and we'll bring you right on in. We appreciate you.
Come on, bring that expertise in here and chime in.
Exactly.
Rights, for the father's rights.
Yep. Hey, K. Fred, what you got on this?
Oh man, honestly, I think Danelle said it all. There's nothing for me to say. She summed it up perfectly. Other
Damn.
than I'm a living witness to it, so I get it because she's right. California does have a 2 year, right? And
Oh,
at the
so
end of
they
the,
have a little statute of limitations on this.
yes, they do. It's 2
That's
years.
messed up.
Yeah, and you
And
can go back and try to contest it after 2 years, but they're gonna tell you, well, you outside of that statute, and we find you, like she said, legally and financially responsible for that
Dang.
they know is not yours.
Ooh.
So I
I
mean,
mean, as being a mother of boys, I want my boys to get their children tested. And I don't have, like, for instance, I don't have any doubt that, every person, every woman has something to hide. But if you don't, the man doesn't have that security. We always want security as women. We always want to know that we're secure in the home that we're in, that we're protected. But at the same time, they have to know that they're secure in areas that they just have to take a chance. That's not fair. In my opinion, that's not fair. And so I don't think that it should be optional, but I did with my husband's. I was like, you want to test the baby? Go right ahead. I don't care. I don't have anything to hide. I don't see why somebody would be offended by that when you want to secure your relationship and your man. It's not that they don't trust you. It's just that for their manhood, for their own sanity, I just want to know. I mean, we don't want them to just tell us, you my wife, because I feel it in my heart. You want that ring and that license, right? So, I mean, come on. Sometimes words ain't good enough.
Yeah, I feel you.
Especially when at the end of the day, there are no guarantees and they can be affecting the rest of their lives and this child life by not making sure. And I definitely think that it should be mandatory before issuing any kind of child support orders. Because there are people out here that if you don't get served paperwork, if you're not communicating with the mom, before you know it, she done went and filed child support orders on you and you don't even know if the baby is yours.
Yeah, that happens in
Runs on that as well.
yeah, remember I was telling you, because out here in Georgia, we, like I said, we did an episode on fathers in the child support system, and one of the guests, he actually went through this whole process. We went through it with him from beginning to end on how this played out, and basically to go through that legitimation process that we discussed, where you have to end up trying to enforce or apply for your rights as a father. He went through that, and then that DNA paternity test is a requirement for that. So you got to go through that DNA paternity testing along with that legitimation process here in Georgia. So it helps out, I think, to try to alleviate that confusion down the line where you're ending up paying on some sort of child, or I'm sorry, don't want to sound like that. You're saying you're paying on a child that's not, biologically yours. And I think that's the jacked up part, because you might go 4 or 5 years, 10, 12 years, 20 years, or possibly never even finding out. But a lot of people end up going through that, getting connected through the families and all that stuff and getting attached. And then come to find out that baby ain't yours.
I think the only time that it should be optional is if a husband and wife are married and he decides he doesn't want to, because we do know that in a lot of laws that when you are married, you already have laws. If you have children within the marriage, you have rights to those children. But it's a lot of times the children that are created outside of marriage where the father loses a lot of the rights.
For me, I'd like to see it a part of a reform, of a child support reform. I think that's necessary, because I think, the more we have these conversations, we're always picking out the holes, those things that we obviously see from, whether it's an ethical standpoint, a moral standpoint, that it's just not right. And we've already discussed that the majority of this is surrounded by economics. We know that some men go into that famous day when you walk into court for the child support and your balance is zero. But when you get done, the judge will set you $8,000, $10,000 behind and now you automatically walk out with back child support. And then the state of California, they charge 10% interest on the past due debt. So
Damn.
right there, you're out of the gate. And then within a couple months, if you don't pay that balance, they're suspending your license, taking away all of these quote unquote, what they say, privileges that you have. But I always say this, and Ephraim, you hear me say it quite often. It's kind of like the prosecutor works for the state, the judge works for the state is there to generate income. So it behooves them to have as many men as they can on child support with past due amounts, because they're earning interest off of it, as well as the service fee that they get when they transfer the payment that you make to her. They take a piece of it. They don't give her the full amount. You see, so I think there needs to be an all-around reform of child support itself, and mandatory paternity should be added within that.
But think about it, okay, Fred, some of these people that are ordered to pay child support didn't even sign the birth certificate. That's what I think is ridiculous.
Exactly.
In some states, the dad doesn't even have to be present. The mom can just say, this is the father, and go get child support ordered.
Yep.
Yeah, we was talking about that the other day, where basically the system is built on this premise that the mother basically has a credit card in the father's name, meaning his social security number and date of birth. All she got to do is go to the county and then swipe. They say, hey, we got that social security number. Go get what you want on the benefits, and then charge that shit to him. And then before you know it, like Kirk he comes into the court trying to deal with some sort of situation that's been thrown upon him. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait, what? Yeah, she bought this, she got this, and she got this and got this. And it's been going on for the last 5 years. You got arrearages on this, and you got to pay it plus interest. You walk out of there in debt, $50,000, $100,000. You're like, what the hell? I didn't even know. And then again, if you're in California, past that statute of limitations, that's like, wow, that's messed up.
It doesn't matter. And I don't know how long the statute of limitations is in Texas. I want to say I read up on it, and I think it was 3 years. But I mean, you really need to be aware of your area's laws, because at the end of the day, you might be playing Russian roulette with the rest of your life, because this is something that if you get married, it's going to affect your wife's income. It's going to affect the assets that you guys try to build together. Like, you don't want to just be out here randomly having sex, because all a woman has to say is, it's your baby. And hopefully somebody don't say that and you ain't even had sex with her, but I'm just saying.
Yep. Oh yeah, I'm sure that happened a lot, I'm sure.
But that's the reason why there's that law is stupid. Any woman can manipulate the system and get money if they just say this is the man's baby, if there's no protection against that. Well, how could it be that easy?
Cutter, what you got?
I mean, she just, to touch on what she just said, how could it be that easy? It is that easy. They made it that way. In certain states, I just know that in Georgia, it just happened that law passed in 2015, where it was mandatory if a woman filed child support on a man that he had to perform a DNA test before the child support case went forward. And that was just 8 years ago. And that's just in Georgia. I mean, we, like he said, we had 2 men on the show. In my personal life, have known over 7, 8 men, and that's just off the top of my head, who've been through it, and turns out they wasn't the father. I mean. So that you alone. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this, men on the panel. When you listen to the laws of Georgia, where they say the if you have a baby outside of wedlock, you have no rights unless you go through the legitimation process. Do you think that's a protection, or is something that's working against you? Because a lot of people feel like, I want my rights, I want my rights. Do you feel like you need to go through that legitimation process in order for you to A, protect yourself and know it's your baby, B, be able to financially know what you're legally responsible for? But if you're not going to be together, then that's the right thing to do, to have your rights, right? Or do you feel it's working against men?
I know in my opinion, I always like to kind of reference, the history thing, because this is all new. We talked about that a little bit, but this whole process of claiming your bastard kids is new. This is a modern 20th century thing, because before, remember, whole process of knocking her up, or this particular young lady gets pregnant, then that's it. The child doesn't get any benefits. They don't get any inheritance. They don't get the name. They don't get none of that. And then the girl, the woman that's pregnant, she dealt with the kid. She got to hold on to the kid, take care of the kid, and then the family, of course, takes care of her and the child, and then the community as well as her. They end up becoming blemished. The whole thing, they are pretty much exiled as pretty much bad, immoral parents, because they have a girl, or a daughter rather, that became pregnant and was not married. She didn't enter into wedlock before it happened. So these bastard kids were raised by the mother, not the father, because the father wasn't there, because he had to claim that. He knocked it out, he beat it down, and then he left, and there wasn't any consequences. That's it. I call it the Jon Snow effect. If you ever watch Game of Thrones, Jon Snow was a bastard. He didn't get the benefits of becoming or having royalty because he was considered a bastard child. But come to find out, of course, later on, he ended up being he ended up having the legacy, which he was actually, I guess, some sort of royal name was attached to him. But whatever the thing may be going forward, what's happening now is that fathers, and we don't know if it's because of child support making them do it, I don't know, but now the fathers of these bastard children, now they want rights to the kids. Now this is new. The fathers that originally didn't want rights to the bastard kids, they weren't claiming them. All of a sudden now, we want rights. We want rights to our kids that we didn't take care of, but now we want to, because for whatever reason we're gonna do it. So
Right.
this is this is crazy.
They're not creating them out of wedlock anymore.
Exactly. They were like, man, I want my rights to see my kid, but is it because of the child support, or is it because they really want to be with their kids?
Leaving out some valuable point. Most of the men that left these women to raise children by themselves were married. They had families outside.
Yeah. Yep, you're right about that.
There's a big difference between a man who's just knocked up a woman. Maybe they were dating and just messing around or whatever, and they were just two single individuals, and she got pregnant. Though they weren't together, he still wants the right to say, you know what, I don't have any other kids, so I would like to have an opportunity to raise my son. Well, this married dude over here got four. He don't need another. Hey, look, I don't know what you're talking about. That ain't my baby. You ain't gonna wreck my family over here. You know what I'm saying? I got a wife at the eyes, so I don't know what you're
It
talking
was
about.
only a one night stand. You knew what your position was on the damn team.
You do the side piece. I told you to keep that dumb Virgin down. It would not keep.
So is it working for men, or is it working against men to have to legitimize your kids before you got rights or responsibilities?
I would say it's working for, because, like I just said, a lot of men are single and don't have children. So these men they want rights to their child, and the only way that some of them get those rights is through child support. Um, we've talked about on the show before how some females, some mothers allow their personal feelings to get in the way of raising a child, and or having that father in that child's life. So some guys got to go through the courts. You know what I mean? So of course, I would say it's definitely beneficial.
Okay, Fred, you quiet, but I know you thinking. What you got on this?
I go back to the basic foundation that what were the two people doing in the very beginning when they lay down in the bed, and what that's for is to make a child. So I mean, at the end of the day, if I do like the mandatory paternity, I think that would lead more into accountability with men, right? Because you can't use that as an excuse later on when you got your emotions involved, because she may have been a bit promiscuous and you found out, so you automatically use that to deny it. I mean, it's kind of like this, man. This whole dysfunction. You look at TV, they got a show called Paternity Court. Like you got a TV show where you can literally advertise different couples every day going, is this your baby? And then before that you had your boy Maury. You know what I'm saying?
And
Father,
Jerry Springer.
and
Jerry Springer started it off.
And then he tell you, here we got Lucy. She's been on our show 4 times.
And we still don't know who the baby daddy is.
We still don't know who he is. So I don't think it's unknown to us, from a social standpoint, that this shit happens. I think, going back to what I said earlier, the mandatory paternity, for me, it leads to a greater sense of accountability. You know what I mean? If I know out the jump right now, before I even sign this birth certificate, this is mine. And then I think there needs to be an education on what your legal responsibility is to the child as a parent, right? And that's something they don't teach or they don't show, but they have you sign that birth certificate over to the state, right? Which makes the child a warden of the state, which that's a whole nother conversation. But back again to the economics. So I think, ignorance, man, is money. You know what I mean? Because you can lean to people's ignorance and constantly keep them bounded economically.
Definitely.
Right.
I think that was a good point that you made, K. Fred, when you said that you also think that there needs to be education on the rights and things like that. As when I just had my baby, before we left the hospital, we had to watch videos on car seat safety. We had to watch videos on like all this different stuff on their breathing and how to sit them up and how to burp them and stuff like that. But when you know that you're dealing with, and then they make you deal with the birth certificate. You got to name your baby before you leave. You got to do all of that paperwork before you leave. So why, if we're watching all these educational videos, is it not taught to us what our responsibilities are as parents, especially when you are dealing with two people? Like, for instance, there should be classes on single parenting that you got to watch before you leave the hospital. There should be classes on married couples, on how dads can help moms recover after the baby and responsibilities that he can help out with, how to understand her postpartum depression. How come there isn't classes on single fathers? Like, if you know that you're dealing with parents that are not married, then both of them should have to watch classes on single parenting, just in the event that they're not married. In the event that you're taking care of this child by yourself, this is a possibility. These are some resources that are out here for you. These are some things that you can turn to. You're never alone. Why aren't those things mandatory before you leave the hospital?
Wow. So
And
look,
what's funny
what you got,
is
Kurt?
when you're going through that whole process, whether you're married or whether you're single, they have this thing called mediation, right? At least in California, they do. And you go into mediation where you sit down with the mediator with the other parent. I always found it to be useless because it was just he said, she said, the arguing, and she can get up and walk out, and then they give their recommendation to the court either way. But I feel like within that mediation, there should be some other type of things that, as far as the parenting, as far as who's going to keep the child, all the things that you have to go through if you're not going to be in that relationship anymore. And that's something I don't think that you really see, is the system bringing the two parents together to learn the abilities of co-parenting.
Right.
I think that's the problem.
We have a comment on here, and I wanted to ask. It just says Facebook users. So, Facebook user, you say these things should be done prior to birth, prior to going to the hospital. Once the baby is born, it's low key too late. What do you mean these things should be done prior to birth? Do you mean a paternity test should be done prior to birth? What are you referring to?
Yeah, I guess we'll wait for them to respond, but basically, because that's not done normally. I mean,
Yeah.
medically, because that's amniocentesis. That's
Right.
they typically don't do that unless they're trying to check, for diseases and stuff like that, deformities, to try to alleviate and be prepared for that. But now, right, they can't do they're not doing DNA testing prior to delivery.
They can do it, but the risk is not worth it.
Exactly.
And everybody's not willing to risk miscarriage to do a paternity test.
Okay, it's McKen folk. To Sean, she says
Okay.
she's talking about the I guess the
The
classes.
I was referring. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Tashawn. I think that they tell these mothers to go to these Lamaze classes so I could teach you how to breathe. You want to go to these breastfeeding classes, teach you how to put the nipple in the baby mouth, but you ain't gonna tell me how to co-parent.
Well, and then I could see some stubborn men going, I ain't going no classes till I know that's my baby.
My baby.
And that's even more reason why she needs to go to a single parents class.
So she can learn how to deal with him.
so she can face the possibilities of having to do it by herself.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I always think, and I know this is hindsight is 2020 because it's after the fact, but as far as before, do you think that by explaining everything we talk about, all of this information, all the knowledge that's out there, all of these lawyers, they're coming on, they're explaining parental rights, the process of paternity, co-parenting as unwedded couples, dealing with the whole custody battles and all that. If they did this, had these informative classes prior to, and then explain what was taking place when you become intimate with somebody legally, you're entering into a contract. So you're entering into this contract, and like Kurt said, you're producing this product. This product is going to be owned by the mother and the state. They have a co-ownership, co-partnership with this particular product, and you as the father have to request to have your share legalized. You don't just get your share automatically like the mother does. The mother automatically is given that legality by the state or by the government, federal government and the state. And then of course the county, they're the ones that manage the programs that the federal government has legislated to her. But you have to earn that. You got to go through a whole process, pay money in order for you to get your share in the product. If it's explained in an economic fashion, do you think that it would actually help minimize these types of situations going forward?
No.
Everybody was quiet, like, hell no.
No. I mean,
no, it would not.
Let's just be real.
They still gonna do that.
We know how much kids cost, and a lot of people don't care because it's never been an intent for them to take care of their responsibilities or face the consequences. I mean, if we looked at it like, okay, I'm gonna really have to face these consequences, then yeah, choices may be different. But there are so many people that feel like they can avoid it. Like Kurt said, I think it was you, Kurt, on one of the last episodes. You said, please, I just won't get a job. I'll hustle. I'll work under the table. I'll do whatever. There's so many different things that people could do to avoid the consequences that it's not really going to deter people from stop doing the things that's causing it. because it's too pleasurable. People are too broken to have self-discipline. People are too broken to not need somebody else to validate them. So at this particular moment, if I gotta hop into bed with Sally
Right.
Sue over here, I'm gonna hop into bed with Sally Sue over here. And if I can't afford no condoms, or I just don't like how they feel, or I'm totally irresponsible, I'm still hopping into bed with Sally Sue. And Sally Sue still opening her legs for me, regardless of whether or not I got a condom, regardless of whether or not I show her I want a family or can afford a family. Like, people were doing this, knowing this.
True. Kurt, I'm hearing you in my head. Get out of there. Because what I hear from Kurt right now is, you know what? It's all about money. It boils down to money, right? Because if we were to get everybody educated, knowledgeable about all of the consequences that will be derived from their actions, you know how much money the government would lose based off of people starting to think more, actually being more aware about the consequences. It's similar to fast food and how we eat. It's the same concept. If I was to actually teach everybody, bring all of this information and try to put some sort of legal means to prevent people from eating fast food, start outlawing a lot of the stuff that's actually contaminating our bodies, that's killing us, which they know is killing us. And a lot of countries outlaw this shit to this very day. But the United States say, hey, we can't do that. It's a capitalist, economic system where, they should be able to sell what they want to sell, blah, blah, blah. We got all these protections for these companies, and they're selling this shit and they're promoting it and advertising it. And then when the consequences come from all of this advertising and promoting and marketing, and people are reacting based off of what they're being subliminally taught to, okay, it happens. That's what's supposed to happen. But then they want to act like after the consequences come, how is this happening? Who's doing this? Why is this happening? Because you're putting this in people's head every day through videos, through commercials, through talk shows, magazines, everything. Sex, 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 sex. Fuck, 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 fuck. Sex, 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 sex. Everything is promiscuous. Anything, all things go, everything goes. And what comes with that, of course, what Kurt said, it's not pleasure, it's pregnancy. So what do? It's like, we know this is an economic system and they're not going to do that, because if they would actually implement that, then they would lose out on billions of dollars on both ends of the spectrum. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I like to call it organized chaos.
Mm.
Right? Because the more I keep the people, the more I keep them at each other's throats, right? I can keep them arguing about all these stupid ass issues. I remember a time where, it wasn't cool to be gay. You know what I'm saying? You hid that shit, right? Now it's okay. It's just open. You know what I mean? And there's been a shift in what we call the moral values, a moral compass, right? Where you hear young people go, oh man, y'all old, that don't work no more. You know what I'm saying? And but these things for me, I think were set in place because it's like you said, Ephraim, we had this conversation, what's outside of you to govern you, right? And sometimes if it's like no holds barred, there's no rules to the game, then you open for chaos, and that's the way that they like it, right? Because you're not in agreement. You're battling with different thoughts. You got white, black, you got racism, you got cops. You hear all of these negative connotations that are fed to you from a social standpoint every day. That becomes your focus. So what that does to you spiritually is now you sitting on that vibration where everything is chaotic. So what are the choices going to be made? They're going to be made according to your social economic environment. You know what I mean? If you up in New York, that's why they got bodegas. Ain't no grocery stores. You know what I'm saying? If you out in California, in some of the neighborhoods, you already know there's liquor stores on every corner. There's really no zoning. You're prone to your environment. And most people will never leave their environment to understand that there's something more. So you get stuck. And that's the way that they like it. They started doing that back when the slaves were moving to the north. They put them in little pockets up in Baltimore and New York, and then they called it ghettos. Now it's called urban areas, gentrification. Gentrification is funny because they always talk about you're taking over the black shitty neighborhood that's run down. No, Gentrification is the lack of understanding the value in your own community. You know what I mean? Understanding from an economic point. And I always bring it back to money, man, because for me, if you have money, it gives you better opportunity. Having money gives you better books for school. Having money gives you a better education. Even understanding money gives you more money. You know what I mean? So a lot of these issues that we deal with, even the child support, like if a dude is, if he can't provide, then that's why they issue child support. If I'm dropping her 3,000-4,000 a month because I got money, do you think she's going for child support? No. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
I think that. Go ahead.
I mean, I was just touching on what Kurt said. You got some women who are just greedy and figure, oh, okay, each time I figure my child's father opens up a new company, or I think he's gotten a raise or something like that, I'm going back to the courthouse to try to see if I can get some more child support so I can, live off of him or off of child support. That's why they call it the child support hustle. It became a hustle once some women, or very few or a low percentage of men who actually exercise this behavior, found out that if I marry or have a child by a person of significant means, that I probably won't have to work, because child support is pretty much going to pay rent, mortgage, school, whatever. And then if I can get more than that, I'm gonna try. You know what I mean? That's where the hustle aspect came from. But I mean, it's a part of the game. If anybody has an opportunity to get more money, they probably gonna see it. I think that's just nature. That's just me though. I don't know.
Yep, definitely. Danae, what you got?
I'm transitioning just a little bit, because while I know that there is a influence there that's financially motivated, I feel like that's not the source of the problem, and that's also not the source of the resolution. Yes, obviously money is one of the major conflicts when breaking up homes and in relationships, but the problem, and I have to say, we talked about it, Ephraim, on one of the previous episodes that we did on my podcast, when Dr. K. Jones was on there. K. Jones Jr. was on there, and he said that his organization taught about conflict resolution. That's one of the things that we are missing in our culture, in our community, in our homes, because I don't care what you're dealing with. If you were better, if you were healed, if we were dealing with what was going on with us personally, if we were dealing with what was going on with us spiritually and mentally and emotionally, and we were getting into a healed place, then we can deal with some conflict in a better manner. We would be able to have some self-discipline to make some progress, instead of just arguing to argue and tearing and dividing and not building unity. I think that the biggest issue, and the reason why we can talk about these subjects but we can't resolve these subjects, is because everybody wants to be heard and nobody wants to focus on conflict resolution and tools and resources that will help us understand each other. It's not just about the money. It's about us being so broken that we don't have unity.
Well, I wanted to show you something to piggyback off of what we were talking about, or what we're talking about. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Let's go to. Okay, everybody see that? So this is AmericanProgress.org. It talks about learning from the United States painful history of child support. It's a good article. You can check it out. Basically, I'm gonna start in the middle, because I wanted to kind of touch on this, because it boils back to what we've been discussing and hitting on. It's about money. So the child support program started off as a federal-state partnership with the goal of reducing expenditures of the aid to families with dependent children. That's called the AFDC program. From 1935 to 1996, AFDC was a primary vehicle for economic supports to families with children. The child support program collected money from non-custodial parents, most of whom are fathers whose children relied on AFDC benefits. But this support did not go to children. Instead, it was used to reimburse the government for AFDC benefits. We talked about that before. Remember, the governments or their federal government funds the states. The states basically have this money that they issue to those who qualify for it, but then it's recouped with interest from the custodial non-custodial parents, which in most cases, which we know as fathers. For example, if a court ordered a parent to pay $100 every month in child support to a household that received $100 in AFDC money, the state kept the entirety of that $100 child support payment and shared it with the federal government. This welfare cost recovery effort remains in effect today. Though many states do now pass through a portion of these payments to custodial parents and children, in 2021, the government kept an estimated $1.38 billion in child support. This approach to cost recovery essentially requires poor non-custodial parents, most of the time that, remember that 80-20 percentile, that large amount is the fathers that are getting hit with this, parents to repay the federal government for the minimal cash aid their children receive, providing neither parents nor children with economic security. States should, and of course it goes on to say, states should end these policies and refocus enforcement efforts towards providing services such as job training and placement, which is what we discussed just now, thereby lessening the punitive targeting of low-income men and Black men in particular, and increasing the likelihood that child support programs lead to actual economic benefits for poor children and families. So everything we just discussed, they know this. They've been talking about this. They've been fighting for reform because the program is jacked up. It's built on faulty premises, but it's based on billions. Saw that, billions. They pulling in billions on this thing. So that's, you know, you think they finna get that up?
That there is a reform that is way past due. Obviously, the child support system needs to be reformed. I just feel also that, like we were saying, like the article was saying, it's not the children or the mothers that are benefiting, and which is why they're putting it into practice. They're putting it into practice because they're benefiting. The people that run the show are benefiting. Because if you're on AFDC and you're getting child support sent from the father, depending on the amount of child support, like the article just pointed out, the mother is either getting none or $50 a month. So that child support, that what you're paying isn't even going to the child. They're getting probably a smaller amount because you're paying some towards past due arrears, some towards your current, and then they're only giving the mom a small portion of that. So it's not a system that's actually built to give your child the quality of life. And the only reason why they're getting away with keeping it in practice is because of the number of, or the reason why it came into be in the first place, which is a lot of fathers did not want to take responsibility for their illegitimate children, their bastard children. But now, like anything else with the times, things need to be reformed, things need to be looked at. And that's one of the things that's just past due.
Definitely. So yeah, we touched on a lot on this particular topic. You guys have anything before we close it out?
Yeah, I actually do.
What you got with us?
We touched on, I think for the most part, we touched on the people who get together that are single and not the people that are actually married. And I think there's a smaller percentage of men who are in marriages who come to find out that the children that they thought were theirs are not. I think it's close to, let me see here, I looked it up. Actually, I'm going to share the screen, E.
Okay. When it pops up, I'll put it on the screen.
All right. Let me pull it out.
Yeah, that's what they should have did.
Share screen.
While you're pulling, okay, there you go.
30% of men, not the father. Interesting statistic.
So let's get to the meat of this, because what they're dealing with here are actual married men, not not just single people who get together and decided that, okay, we done messed up and, got together and we had a child and now I'm not sure if it's mine. We don't want to wake up the fact that, hey, for years there have been men who are married to women, and they, who is going to suspect that their wife is actually cheating? And then when the baby comes around and everybody's congratulating, oh, Jack and Keisha and said they're having a kid, man, woo, woo, woo. Who's actually gonna question whether or not that child is actually his, except the person, that may have known something that he didn't know? You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't
Mommy's
want to wait,
baby, daddy's maybe.
but though that there's not a big, it's not a big percentage of men who experience this, and it may be more. They just don't know. They just don't know. So my question is to you guys: do you think it should be mandatory for married people to have that same test, DNA test?
I
Well,
think that's complicated. What you got, K. Fred?
Just one
well,
in that
shit.
house, and the parents
keep
are there.
I'm gonna keep it this
And
simple.
go ahead.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. There it is.
You gonna think?
There it is. That's it.
This is my opinion on that. And I'm gonna give you my opinion in a short story because I know we're wrapping things up. I talked to a lady one day, and she said that when she went to her OBGYN for her annual checkup, her OBGYN asked her, was she using any type of protection from, like birth control or anything like that? And she said, are you using any type of protection? The lady said, I'm married. And she said, are you using any type of protection? The lady responded to her, I'm married. And the woman that was telling me that this happened to her was like, I'm offended that she would ask me, am I protected? And I'm only sleeping with my husband. I trust my husband. Yeah, I'm safe. What other kind of protection I need other than to be sleeping with my husband? And a lot of people might say that that's naive. But I really admired their relationship and their trust just because I knew them on a personal level. I don't know what they do behind closed doors, but I had no reason to question it. And the mere fact that she had that type of trust in her husband, she was offended that anybody would feel that she was unprotected by sleeping with her husband. In my opinion, when you are talking about a married couple, it is up to them as one to decide whether or not they want to have their baby tested. Now, I think it should be offered to everyone. But I believe that if you're married, and this is my personal take on things, just Danny's take on things, I think it should be optional, but the husband should be offered. But I think that it should be mandatory for anybody that's not married. And the only thing that makes a difference to me is that when you're married, you already get certain rights that unmarried people having children don't automatically get. So that's my take.
Yeah, I agree. That's the same thing, because when you're under that conjugal contract, aka wedlock, aka marriage, you're already, in there. So technically, in some cases, the fathers, or rather the husbands, even though the wife has cheated on them with another man outside of the marriage, the judge will attribute that child to the father, or rather to the husband, because they married. So it get ugly. It be like, man, but that ain't mine. Yeah,
That's
but
the same. Hold on. Come on,
But
man.
he has the right to say, you know what, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if the baby is biologically mine. I know there's a chance I'm taking, but I trust my wife. And even if it ain't, this is a chance I'm willing to take. So that means that if they end up breaking up and it's not his baby, you were willing to take that chance. So there's no fighting and crying about it later. You were given the option. I think that when you're given that option and you refuse that option, then yes, you are legally responsible for that child.
Sound like that damn judge that I just got through talking about. Kurt, I know you got something on this before we close it out.
All right, man. Let's just put it like this. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just you added a label to it, right? And it's like, because I carry this label of marriage, now to me it still goes back to the same thing. You make it mandatory. I don't care whether you're married or whether you're single. If you're having a child, it should be mandatory even within the marriage, because it still leaves it open for the same thing to happen, which is basically a child that doesn't have his real father. That's the basis of it. You know what I mean? And that's just tearing it all the way down to its bare minimum. That's what it's all about.
Definitely.
Okay? So whether you're in a marriage or whether you're not,
I definitely think that for the child's sake, absolutely, I can agree with that point being made. But I think that also at the same time, when you're married, it's hard to make something like that mandatory. Everybody has different spiritual beliefs, etc. I think it's really hard. Plus, the mere fact that they are automatically given rights is just going to be kind of hard to make that mandatory in a marriage.
Yeah, I think you can, but I think if you do that though, because I thought about this,
I like the
with that
Facebook user right there.
What'd you say?
The Facebook user right there.
Oh, yep. They said it should be mandatory for everyone, because if you're married and it's not the father's, it's the father's. Exactly. That's what I was saying.
Exactly.
I think you should make it mandatory, because then it takes it out of the decision making of the husband and wife, and by legislating it, she can't get mad, he can't be mad. No, the court, rather the law says that this has to happen. So whether you like it or not, it ain't nobody's fault except the system. So you can blame it on that.
And guess what? If you don't like it, guess what you don't do? Don't go lay down.
Yep.
See, that's why I said I thought it should be mandatory before there's any legal actions taken. Like, you're not getting charged child support. You're not legally, like, there shouldn't be a statute of limitations that starts with somebody's word. If you're going to start a case where you're going to say we legitimize this baby, which wouldn't happen inside of a marriage, because you can't go get child support if you're living together inside of a marriage. If you're both equally living in that home at the same amount of time and all this and that, like, y'all live together, y'all married, y'all both raising this child.
Yeah, but hold on, Danielle. But here's the one thing that is common across all boards. When the child is born, they ask us at the hospital going through tests, whether you're married or whether you're not. When the child is on right there coming out of the womb on the table, they run and test.
Yep,
right there, it should be done.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
I'm not saying that it can't be, or that in my opinion it shouldn't be. All I'm saying though is, like, a lot of the things that's meant, the reason why we put those things into place is to prevent certain things from happening in the legal system. And I also added that I give you credit for saying so that the child knows who his biological parent is. But outside of the child knowing who their biological parent is, legally, none of the other ramifications would be a consequence if they stayed within their marriage. It doesn't become an issue until the marriage or they part ways, which then all of a sudden you have this legitimation question, you have this child support issue, and that's when I feel like it should be mandatory before any of those legalities are actually moved forward on.
I think it should be on hold.
Then then that child could be 13, 14 years old.
Yeah,
mom and daddy divorced, and then it happens, and he's going, I've been living a lie for 15 years. Nobody loved me. You didn't tell me the truth.
So then basically the real reason why we want it done is so the child knows without a shadow of a doubt that this is daddy. And we can take the finances off of it then.
Well, actually, it don't matter what label or narrative you want to put on there. You could put whatever narrative you want on there. The ending result is we need to make it mandatory for all circumstances. If you don't want to know, it's on file at such and such hospital, blah, blah, blah. And if you want to find out, it's always on record. So if the father or the mother want to find, mother already know. She already know goddamn who it is. So the
Well,
father,
depending on how busy she
no,
was.
but the catch is that's the problem. So if she's already sneaking around out the back door, then that's on her. She know she knows she was cheating on
She know
somebody.
whether or not she's sure or not.
No,
She
she
may
was
not know
cheating.
who the daddy is, but she know whether or not she's sure or not. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like I said, I agree with you. I think it should be met.
What'd you
Bottom
say?
line, it's coming out of her. And let's bring back the ghetto DNA test. Mama always gonna know that ain't your baby boy. You better go get blood test.
That ain't true.
Or grandma. Some people know their bloodline.
I mean, if
Some
the
people
baby
know their
comes out
bloodline.
with their strong features and stuff like that, but then there's also some people that have gotten it wrong.
Oh yeah, ask
Well,
Maury and Jerry Springer.
When I first came down and he introduced me to one of his boys, and he had just had his son Liam. I know our genes, and when I looked at Liam, I was like, yeah, that's eBay. Like this is not now. But when I looked at Eve's boys, baby, he looked like him. You know, he had the same shaped head and everything. But this is the same homie who found out later as the baby grew older and he didn't get darker. He seemed to get lighter. You know, and I'm like, I don't know, man. And this is just me. I'm just that guy. I question because I've seen it happen so many times. When dudes come around with their baby, I'm like, hence why I want to share this last video before we leave. E.
Okay, this is the last thing, and then we can wrap it up.
And we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, this is good though, man. I appreciate this because this
I
episode.
agree with our Facebook user comment. DNA is the only way to know for sure. I'm okay with mandatory testing. Thank you guys for all your comments and interactions with us. And in case we don't come back, I'm out.
Yep, that's what's up. And yes, I agree. That whole pinpoint eye test bullshit, man, please, because we all look like Tyson at times. So
Right?
it's like, no, man, that's not. We not finna do that. He got hazel eyes, and your daddy now. You don't know the bloodline. You don't know how far back this shit go back. You can't sit up there and say just because he ain't got the same eyes, you don't get the same DNA from your parents. Your DNA is a combination of a long legacy of a whole bunch of people that came before you. You don't know what the hell they got that you didn't got that just seemed to be prominent and manifested itself. So, what you got, Cutter?
Yeah, you got it.
But with mandatory DNA test also comes mandatory. You got your responsibility. You're going to fight that hard to find out if you're yours. Take care of them when you find out they're yours.
Right.
What
so
you got?
It on a funny note.
One your son, what?
Man, that's him right there coming up.
I said, which one your son?
Right there, you can't tell.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah.
Oh, how old are you?
Yeah, he's 7.
What's his name?
Yeah, his name Devontae.
Devontae. What's up, Devontae? Nice to meet you. So how long you been paying child support on him?
Yeah, he's 7. I've been paying since he was born.
Since he was born?
Yeah, and my boy there.
Well, you just hit the lotto, boy.
Why you say that?
You just hit the lotto. Somebody owe you some back pay. 7 years child support.
What you mean?
They ain't your boy there.
Man, it is.
That boy ain't got your nose, ears, or eyes. Man, that could be anybody, baby. I'm sorry, son. Hey, where your mom at? You don't know. You don't know your dad at either, because it ain't him. Don't be looking at me like that, man. I'm just calling how I see it. And I don't see you in him nowhere.
Well, man, we appreciate y'all joining us this evening. Another episode of Concrete Reality TV. Be sure to like and subscribe, share, and we out. Peace.
Join us next time.
Yes, ma'am.